This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
So we have some outstanding information over here, which is really remarkable. The Torah tells us that Pharaoh summons Moshe Rabbeinu, and he makes what seems to be a very sincere and very honest and very submissive and humble vidui. Pharaoh comes to Moshe Rabbeinu and says, I've sinned. Hashem HaTzadik, God is the righteous one. V'ani v'ami Risham, we're the wicked ones. It sounds like a full-fledged vidui. I mean, the Rambam writes, what's vidui? If someone says chatasi, they sinned. Pharaoh seems to have made a very honest, very sincere vidui. And nevertheless, right after that, Pharaoh hardens his heart. And how do we understand that Pharaoh says these words, chatasi apam? I've sinned. Hashem HaTzadik. We know the Gemara tells us in Eruvin, on Daf Yotes, that Rishaim, even when they get to the doorway of Gehenna, they don't enam chayzim b'tshuva. They don't say vidui. They don't have any regrets. And here, Pharaoh, who do we have a bigger Russia than Pharaoh? Someone who reached the point where he lost his free will, and he's saying this it's like what we do the whole day on Yom Kippur. Shamnu bagadnu. Right? The Gemara says, Rav Shimon Lakish, Rishayim afilu al pischay shel Gehenna einam chayzim b'tshuva. Shenemar v'yatzu v'ro b'figrei hanashim hapoishim bi. If you go into Gehenna, it's not like the people all of a sudden become tzaddikim. The Rishayim are still as adamant and as wicked as ever. So what's going on over here? What exactly is Pharaoh saying? It seems pretty sincere to me. And then take a look at number 3. A little bit earlier in the Parsha, Torah says like this: Vayomru hachartumim el Paroi. The Chartumim say to Paroi, Etzba Elokim hi. It's the finger of God. Vayechazak leiv Paroi. So Pharaoh hardens his heart. V'lo shama aleim. He doesn't listen to them. Ka'ashar dibar Hashem, like God spoke. So what exactly does it mean, Etzba Elokim? Doesn't it mean that the sorcerers acknowledge that this is the work of God? Well, if they're acknowledging it's the work of God, then what does it mean, Vayechazak leiv Paroi v'lo shama aleim? Who is Pharaoh not listening to? So we would read it, well, if the Chartumim just acknowledge it's from God, we would expect Pharaoh is not listening to the Chartumim. Kasher diber Hashem, like God said. God never said Pharaoh wouldn't listen to the Chartumim. God said Pharaoh wouldn't listen to Moshe and Aaron. Hashem never said one time Pharaoh was not going to listen to the sorcerers. So it almost seems like the sorcerers are saying it is God. Pharaoh is not listening to the sorcerers. How do you read the next words? Kasher diber Hashem. You have to say Kasher diber Hashem is Pharaoh hardened his heart, and what? He didn't listen to Moshe and Aaron. Right? That he didn't listen to Moshe and Aaron. Well, then what does it have to do with the beginning of the pasuk that the Chartumim said, Etzba Elokim hi? I mean, how do you read this pasuk? It sounds like the Chartumim are going against Hashem. Hashem said, like, I told you, which seems to indicate that Pharaoh is not going to listen to Hashem. Then what does that have to do with the fact that the Chartumim said, Etzba Elokim hi? And this is a question that's raised by the Noida B'Yehuda Masechta Psachim. The Tzlach in Masechta Psachim, look at number 4, he asks, this pasuk is self-contradictory. If Pharaoh's officers, if his Chartumim, if his sorcerer says this is the finger of God, he should have humbled himself and sent out the Jewish people. So we're forced to say we're forced to say when the pasuk continues that Pharaoh didn't listen to them. He didn't listen to the Chartumim. The Chartumim said and they advised Pharaoh let the Jews go. And Pharaoh didn't listen to the Chartumim. So then how do you read the next words? Kasher diber Hashem. God never told Moshe and Aaron that Pharaoh wouldn't listen to the Chartumim. So what are you forced to say? V'lo shama aleim is Pharaoh didn't listen to Moshe and Aaron. So what does it have to do with the fact that the sorcerer said, Etzba Elokim hi? And then we come to the end of the Parsha. At the end of the Parsha we have a very unusual expression. an expression that has not appeared since Parshas Bereshis. And that is at the very end of the Parsha, by the last mark in the Parsha, V'ata v'avadecha, and you and your servants, Yadati, I know, Ki terem tiraun, you have not yet feared mipnei Hashem Elokim, from before God your Lord. Hashem Elokim. The term Hashem Elokim has not yet appeared in Sefer Bereshis, has not appeared in the entire Sefer Bereshis since Parshas Bereshis. Why? And this is a question raised in the Shailas Utshuvas Maharashdam. Shmuel Di Modina, Chida writes about him, we listen to everything he says like he be the Rambam. We saw recently in a Wednesday night shir about names, Parsha Shemais, a Wednesday shir, that Rav Menashe Klein says that all the Achronim could argue on the Maharashdam. We follow the Maharashdam, who was the Gadol Hadar. And he, in his second Shuvah, in the Sefer, he raises this question in Archaim Siman Beis, and he wants to know why is it that since Bereshis this phrase Hashem Elokim has not appeared. And he also raises another question, and that is like this. Open up your Chumash, you look in Parshas Bereshis. Bereshis bara Elokim, Vayomer Elokim, Vayikra Elokim, Vayomer Elokim, Vayas Elokim, Vayomer Elokim, Vayikra Elokim, Vayomer Elokim, Vayomer Elokim, Vayas Elokim. Right? Again and again and again and again, God's name is Elokim, 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 Elokim. How about Yud Kei Vav Kei? Not one mention of it.
So which one is right and one is din, no?
Simply put, Elokim is din. And then all of a sudden, you get up to Perek Beis, Pasuk Daled, number 7 on your sheets. Eila Toldos Hashamayim Va'aretz Bihi Baram, B'yoyim Asois Hashem Elokim. And then once it starts with the Hashem Elokim business, it can't shake itself from it. It says, Vayitzer Hashem Elokim, Vayita Hashem Elokim, Vayatzmach Hashem Elokim, Vayikach Hashem Elokim, Vayitzav Hashem Elokim, Vayomer Hashem Elokim, Vayitzer Hashem Elokim. I mean, talk about, getting hooked up with something. It starts Bereshis Bar Elokim, it can't shake the Elokim. And as soon as in Perek Beis Pasuk Daled it says Hashem Elokim, straight! And then we don't hear about Hashem Elokim throughout the entire Sefer Bereshis until you get up to the end of Parshas Va'era. And this is the question that the Maharashdam tries to address. And he starts off by saying like this. The questioner says, tell me Pshat, why? In the beginning it's Elokim, Elokim, Elokim. Then you have Hashem Elokim, Hashem Elokim, and you don't hear from it until Va'era. So Maharashdam says, why don't you like what the Sefer HaIkram says? So the questioner says, I don't like what the Sefer Ikram says about this. So the Maharashdam said, if you don't like what he says, and he was much greater than me, you're not going to like what I have to say. But in any event, he offers the following proposal, and we're just going to say it very briefly, but we're not going to focus, we're going to offer something else. And the Maharashdam says, well, we know God created the world, what? Like you said earlier, B'midas Hadin. Right, that's what it says, Bereshis Bar Elokim, Vayomer Elokim, Vayas Elokim. But then, when it comes to the creation of man, God understood the world could not exist on Midas Harachamim, Midas Hadin alone. So Hashem had to join up Midas Harachamim, B'yoyim Asois Hashem Elokim. So Hashem Elokim denotes a shutfis between Din and Rachamim. So says the Maharashdam, when it came to the Barad, at the end of this week's Parsha, even though all the Makos were Elokim, Elokim, Midas Hadin, when it came to the Barad, there was a partnership of Din and Rachamim. Why? Because if you look at the Psukim, it says, the Pishta and the Sa'ira, the flax and the barley were destroyed. That's obviously Din. Because Hashem knew, who eats barley anyway? Abyssal barley and the cholent. I mean, barley is not one of the staples of life. Linen, Pishta, no. But the chita, the wheat, the hakusemes, and the spelt, loinu kasa, that were not smitten. That's a staple of life. So this makkah, you had Din and Rachamim together, and that's why by this makkah it says, Hashem Elokim. Okay? Beautiful pshat. We are going to take a different approach. Okay? Based on the Arizal and the Shlah HaKadosh, and that goes like this. Okay? Mamish amazing. Take a look at number 9. In general, let's talk about this Paroi guy. Paroi was not a fool. Paroi was a tremendous chacham. The Arizal says he was a mechashif gadol. He was a great sorcerer. He was a smart guy. I mean, he is the most powerful and influential person in the world. Okay? You don't think he believed in God? He absolutely believed in God. But what kind of God? He believed in Elohim. How do we know he believed in Elohim? Who taught him about Elohim? Yosef HaTzadik. Yosef, Paroi comes to Yosef and says, "Oh, Yosef, I heard about you, Tishma Chalem Lifter Yosef. I heard you know how to interpret dreams." What did Yosef respond? Look at number 9. Vayan Yosef as Paroi Lemar, Biladai. It ain't me. Elohim Yaneh Shloim Paroi. It's all Elohim. So Yosef taught him about Elohim.
The different Pharaoh.
Did Paro accept that? Absolutely. The pasuk says, "Vayomer Paro el avodav, hanimsa kazeh ish asher ruach Elohim boy." I've never met someone that the spirit of Elohim is in. So Paro learned from Yosef about Elohim, and he was mekabel from Yosef about Elohim. However, you know what Paro doesn't believe in? He doesn't believe in Yud Kei Vav Kei. Because Paro, look in Shemais Parakei Pasuk this, Vayomer Paro, Mi Hashem Asher Eshma B'Kol. Yeah, Elohim, I know all about him. Yosef told me about Elohim, I was Makabel. But Mi Hashem Asher Eshma B'Kol. Lo Yadati Es Hashem. Paro knows Elohim, he doesn't know Yud Kei Vav Kei. But Hashem says, Paro, you're missing something. I have something to tell you. So Parshas Va'era begins. Vayedaber Elohim el Moshe. Vayomer Elav. Ani Hashem. You know, I got to introduce myself. You may know one of my names, but you don't know my true name. You don't know Ani Hashem. And every time Moshe comes to Paro, he says, Leman Teda ki Ani Hashem. B'keref ha'aretz. Leman Teda ki Ani Hashem. Leman Teda ki ein kamoini b'chol ha'aretz. Leman Teda. Right? Leman Teda ki Ani Hashem. And that is why every time it says that Paro's heart was hardened, it says, Vayechazik Hashem esleif Paro. Because every time Paro heard Yud Kei Vav Kei, he went ballistic. He went crazy. He said, I don't know who this Yud Kei Vav Kei is. I know Elohim. Yosef taught me about Elohim. Elohim Yaneh Shleim Paro. Hanimtza Kazesh Asherach Elohim. But who's this Hashem? I don't believe in him. Me Hashem.
If Pharaoh was such a smart man, he couldn't make the association.
No. We'll see. Well, now we have to understand what is Elohim and what is Hashem.
And it was a different Pharaoh.
No, it wasn't. Same parent. In any event, the Arizal tells us like this. Look at number 14 from the Arizal L'Shar Kavanos in Drush Aleph. It's continuation of what we did last week. Paro had a very strong feelings against Yud Kei Vav Kei. That's why he says, Arizal says in the middle of the first paragraph, he Amar Mi Hashem Asher Eshmer B'Koilai. In other words, he's not acknowledging the power of Yud Kei Vav Kei. Look at the next paragraph. Ha'amnam b'shem Elohim ha'yamayda. He was Maidan Elohim because Yosef taught him Elohim Yaneh Shleim Paro, and Paro said Hanimtza Kazeh Ish Asher Ruach Elohim Bai. So let's try to understand this a little bit. What exactly did Paro understand about Elohim, and what did Paro not accept about Yud Kei Vav Kei? Okay, it's very nice, we have the structure down. Paro is willing to accept Elohim, he's not willing to accept. What did he accept? What did he not accept? So the Noida B'Yehuda tells us that we know Elohim has numerical value of 86. Yud Kei Vav Kei has numerical value of 26. Now, what else has numerical value of 86? Teva. Even though Teva is really 81, Ha-Teva, the word Ha-Teva, nature, is 86. God has two ways He runs the world. You know how He ran the world? When God created the world, He set up the laws of nature. He set the world into motion. The sun rises, the sun sets, the birds chirp, the animals hibernate, the birds fly south in the winter. This is Teva. There's certain unalienable laws of nature that are not broken. That is Elohim. Din. Din means the way things should be, nature. But there's another realm that Hashem is able to operate in, and that is Yud Kei Vav Kei. Yud Kei Vav Kei means Haya, Hayve, V'yeh. He was, he is, and he will be. In other words, Mehave Kol HaHavayos. He creates all existence, which means he could supersede the system. He could bypass the system. You could put a certain system into place, but sometimes once the system's in place, it's almost like it has a mind of its own. You can't change the system. God not only is Elohim, not only he created the system, but he could supersede the system. And that's Yud Kei Vav Kei. So Paroi believes in Elohim. He believes in the laws of nature. He believes the world has a certain Olam Kim and Hagai Noyeg. He believes in Elohim. But he doesn't believe God could supersede the system. He read the Chumash, Bereshis Bar Elohim. That's how God created the world. Vayomer Elohim, Vayas Elohim, Vayitzer Elohim. God made a system. And now let's get how he made the system. In Kapitel Halal Hagadol is Kuf Lamed Vav, right? Haidu Hashem Kitayv Ki Li'olam Chastai. Haidu Leilokei Ho Elokim Ki Li'olam Chastai. Haidu La'adonei Ho Adonim Ki Li'olam Chastai, right? Does that sound familiar? Yeah, that's something we do in the Jewish religion, right? We say this chapter of Tehillim, Halal Hagadol. Yeah, you ever hear that before? Kuf Lamed Vav. Haidu Hashem Kitayv, Haidu Le'elokei Elokim, Haidu La'adonei Adonim. God set up a system. You ready for the system? The lowest rank and file are the Adonim. The Adonim are the celestial bodies, the sun, the moon, right? Like we say, Koyach Gvura Nasan Bahem, Liyos Maishlim, B'Kerev Tevel. You ever hear those words? Yeah? Koyach Gvura Nasan Bahem, Liyos Maishlim. God orchestrates the world through the Kaychei Hashemayim, through the Mazalos, through the celestial bodies. Those are the Adonim. Above the Adonim you have Elohim. Elohim is not only referring to God, all great powers refer to Elohim, right? Elohim can refer to Dayanim. Elohim is Slavs, not specifically Hashem. And the Elohim, the Shlach Kadosh writes, is like this. The Elohim are those above. They are the Sarim Shalmaila, right? We know the Malachim. Every Ummah has a Sar. These are the Sarim Shalmaila. And above the Adonim, and above the Elohim, is the Ribbon Shalom himself. But Hashem is also an Elohim, he's also an Adon. That's what we say like this. Haidu Lashem Kitayv Kilam Chaseh. That's the highest level. Haidu Le'elokei HaElohim. Of all the Elohims, of all the powers, God is supreme. And then next we say, Haidu La'adonei HaAdonim. Of all the Adonim, God is supreme. Paroi was masking God is an Adon. He's masking God is Elohim. He does not acknowledge Haidu La'Hashem Kitayv. Doesn't believe in Yud Kei Vav Kei. He doesn't believe God could supersede the system. So every time Moshe Rabbeinu comes to Paroi and he says, Ani Hashem, Paroi goes crazy. Me Hashem. I believe God created nature, and it's Olam Kim and Hagai Noyeg. The laws of nature cannot be superseded. By the way, I'll tell you even more than that. Abarbanel says that the Makos were all natural. They were not miraculous. Mm-hmm. First what happened was the water became polluted and corrupted, and animals died and the water got full of blood. So what are the frogs going to do when the water is full of blood? They're going to start jumping out of the water. They're going to proliferate like crazy. They have nothing better to do with their time. And now you have frogs everywhere. So you have frogs everywhere. Frogs jumping all over your skin. And, you need to take showers. Who knows? Every 3 minutes, people started developing lice. And then after they developed lice, what happened? The animals go crazy. Right? Imagine you have a wild lion. He's itchy like crazy. He's going to attack. And then people are stopped dying. The Abarbanel says all of the makos were natural. Says the Malbim, we disagree with that. We don't accept that. Of course, how could we say such a thing that there was a natural process? We don't believe in that. But Victor Miller points out, look at number 16 in his Sefer, A Nation is Born. Fine, we accept the opinion of the Malbim that all the miracles, all the makos were natural. Were miraculous. But now we understand what Paroi was thinking. Paroi held like the Abarbanel. Paroi held, it's all natural. It's all Elokim. Says the Noida Yehuda, the sorcerers, they take a look at the kingdom, and you know what they say? Etzba Elokim hi. They're disparaging the Makos. They're not being Maida. This is not sincere humility. This is not admission to Yud Kei Vav Kei. This is Elokim. Vayechezak leiv Paroi kasher diber Hashem. Paro's heart was hardened. Why? Because he didn't see anything supernatural. Paro learned our Barbanel al Torah, and he said, "Yeah, you're not proving anything to me. You're telling me in the beginning of the Parsha, Vayera ilav Hashem, right? Vayidaber Elokim el Moshe, Vayomer elav ani Yud Kei Vav Kei. I don't see any Yud Kei Vav Kei any over here." Says in Yehuda, in number 15, no, Paro has not changed his belief. He, by saying Etzba Elokim, nothing has changed. Nothing at all has changed. So says the Shlach HaKadosh, the main limud of the Makos was to understand that although God has put a system into place, He could override the system, He could supersede the system, He could change the system. And that's Yud Kei Vav Kei. Yud Kei Vav Kei means to be Mehaveh Kol HaAvayos, to be able to be Meshaded HaMaroches, to break the stars, to break the effects of nature. That's the main limud of the Makos. So Paro hears Elokim. He says, Elokim I believe in. Mi Hashem. Lo yadati es Hashem. I don't know who this Hashem is. So says the Shlach HaKadosh, amazing thing. Moshe Rabbeinu comes to complain to the Rebbe. He says, Umeyaz basi al Paro. Look at number 18. Ledaber bishmecha heira la'am hazeh. In the beginning, when Paro would hear Elokim from Yosef, Elokim Yanesh Shlem Paro was basically a good guy. But the moment I started to tell him, Bishmecha, as soon as I say, Ani Hashem, Paro is going crazy. And that's when Paro put in the new pronouncement, Tichvad Ha'avoda. Umeyaz Basi Paro Ledaber Bishmecha. Once Paro hears your special name, that's when Paro is making all of these decrees. Says the Shla, amazing thing. It's not pshat Paro hardened his own heart. Vayechezak Hashem esleiv Paro. Every time Paro heard Yud Kei Vav Kei, that hardened his heart. You know what hardened? Vayechezak Hashem esleiv Paro. So the Rebbeinu Shalom says something. Listen to what Hashem says. Hashem says the Shla. When Hashem said, "Va'ani aksha esleiv Paroi," I'm going to harden Paro's heart. Hashem didn't mean I'm going to harden Paro's heart. It's the words "Ani Hashem" are going to harden Paro's heart. Va'ani aksha esleiv Paroi. Every time Paro hears "Ani Hashem b'kerav ha'aretz," "Ani Hashem b'kerav ha'aretz," "Ein kamayni b'cha," every time Paro hears the words "Ani Hashem," "Ani Hashem," "Ani Hashem," that is going to harden his heart. So "Va'ani aksha esleiv Paroi," it's not Hashem saying "I will harden his heart." It's when Paro hears the word "Ani," that will be "Maksha es libai." Says the Shla, that's what it means like this. You ready? Imein ani li, mili, uchshani la'atzmi. Mani. Says the Shah like this. Imein ani li. If I'm not going to keep on telling Parai, Ani Hashem, you know what I'm going to hear from him? Mi Hashem, Asher Eshma B'Keilah. Uchshani la'atzmi. But when I make it my business to make it known in the world, Ani Hashem, then Ma'ani, then people are going to say, Ma'rabu Ma'asecha Hashem. Says the Shla, the same way Hillel said down here in this world, Imein Anili. Hashem also says Imein Anili. Imein Anili means like this. Imein Anili. If I don't teach the world Ani Hashem, all I'm going to hear is Mi Hashem, Mili. When I teach the world about Ani Hashem, Ma'ani refers to Marabu Masecha Hashem. Okay? So you ready for this? What hardened Paro's heart? Ani Hashem, the Ani. But we could say a little bit differently. Go back to the first pasuk. Vayomer Paroi, Vayishlach Paroi, Vayikra leMoshe liAaron, Vayomer aleim, Chatasi hapam, Hashem atzadik, Va'ani va'ami harasham. This is from Rav Shamshin Me'ash Shapalya. Rav Shamshin Shapalya was very early Makubal. The Ramchal quotes him even. Take the words Hashem HaTzadik, Rashi Tevos, Yud, and then Hey. Take the words Ve'ami Harasham, Vav, Hey. So Paroi is saying the Yud Ke Vav Ke, but he's destroying it. He's being mafsik it. How is he being mafsik it? With what word? Va'ani. He's taking the Yud Ke Vav Ke of Hashem HaTzadik, V'yami Harasham. And you know who he's injecting in between? You know how he's being mafsik and destroying? Va'ani! So it says Rav Shamshin HaShafari, at first glance it looks like Paro is making a very sincere vidoy. He's saying Chatasi, Hashem HaTzadik, V'ani Amir, but actually what he's trying to do is he's fighting the Yud Ke Vav Ke. And he's injecting the Va'ani, which also may be what Hashem meant. Va'ani Akshas Leif Paroi. What's hardening Paro's heart is his ego, which he's injecting into the Shem Hashem, which he can't accept the fact that there is someone who supersedes the laws of this world. That's what it means. Hashem HaTzadik V'ani Hamim Hashem. Says Rav Shamshin HaShapalya. If you look in Eicha, this is number 19. It's from the Sefer Likutei Sheshanim, brought in the Sefer Shvilei Pinchas. He says like this. If you look in Eicha, it says Ki Ra'asa Goyim Ba'u Mikdasha. Does that sound familiar? Eicha Parak Aleph Yud. Ki Ra'asa Goyim Ba'u Mikdasha Asher Eloi Tzivisa, right? Remember that pasuk? Ki ends with a Yud. Ra'asa ends with a Hey. Ba'u ends with a Vav. Mikdasha ends with a Hey. It's Yud Ke Vav Ke and Soifei Tevos. The only thing is, what has been injected in between? Goyim. That's what the Goyim are coming to fight. They're fighting the Yud Ke Vav Ke. They're injecting themselves. Ki, Ra'asa, Bo Mikdasha, but the Goyim are coming in. That's what Shamshin supposes. That's what it means. Mizmar la'asaf Elokim, Ba'u Goyim benach la'asecha. The Goyim have entered your inheritance, entered your name. So in other words, what we have over here is, based on the Arizal and the Shla and the Noid Yehuda, is a different mahalach than the Marashtam. And that is, we could say very simple. When God created the world, first He sets up the laws of nature. Bereshis bara Elokim, vayasa Elokim, vayomer Elokim, vayitzer Elokim. But then, take a look in the Sefer Ikrim, God now needs to deal with man. And once God is dealing with man, man has to understand that God could supersede nature. There are supernatural forces in this world that could communicate not in a natural way. There's Nevuah, there's Torah, there's Char V'Oinesh. That's coming Mikayach Yud Ke Vav Ke. So in the beginning of the Torah until Parak Beis, Pasuk Daled, Bereshit bara Elokim, vayomer Elokim, vayasa Elokim, vayitzer Elokim, not one mention of Yud Ke Vav Ke. Until Eila Todo Shemayim Va'aretz, B'yoyim Asois Hashem Elokim. And when God deals with man, it's Hashem Elokim, Hashem Elokim, Hashem Elokim. This is the way the Sefer Ikrim basically explains it. In Parak Yud Aleph, Maimer Aleph. Okay? Paroi understood Bereshis Part 1. Etzba Elokim Hi. But what he didn't get was Mi Hashem. So what we would like to suggest is different than the Marashtam. You know why at the end of the Parsha you have this expression, right? Like we started off. Look at number 5. Ya'ata v'avadecha yadati ki terem tirun mipnei Hashem Elokim. Moshe says, Parah, you're not getting the point. I know you buy into the Elokim business. I know you're willing to acknowledge Etzba Elokim Hi. But you're not getting Vayidaber Hashem El Moshe Vayomer Ani Hashem. You do not yet fear Hashem Elokim. You do not yet fear Hashem Elokim. And why did Parah was not willing to accept the fact that Hashem supersedes nature? And that's why he injects the Ani. He injects himself. Hashem HaTzadik. The Ani, he injects the Ami Harashim. So let me ask you something. Where did Parah learn this from?
What from?
Villain.
So, if you look in Sefer Bereshis, when you look in Sefer Bereshis, after the Torah transitions from Elokim, 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 Elokim to Hashem, Elokim, Hashem, Elokim, we find a very sly and clever fellow by the name of the Nachash. And after about 10 times it says Hashem Elokim. Look in Perek Gimel, Pasuk Av, number 20. B'hanachash haya aram mikol chayas hasadeh asher asa Hashem Elokim. Vayomer Eloisha af ki amar Elokim le'seichlu mikol eitz hagan. Didn't Elokim say you can't eat from any of the trees? Says the Chassam Sofer, look how tricky and clever the Malchash is. Taich kedei dibur, meisiach lefitumai. In the course of conversation, he casually drops the Hashem for the first time. Until then, till Perek Beis Pasuk Dal, it's only Elokim. From then on, once Hashem's dealing with man, it's Hashem Elokim. Until the Nachash comes along and seduces Chavra. How does he seduce her? He drops Hashem. Chazal say, you know what the Nachash tells Chava? You know, God was jealous, and that's why he ate from the Eitz Hadas, and he created the world, so he doesn't want you to eat from the Eitz Hadas. Now, at first, Adam and Chava could never think of such a thing. That's how Hashem created the world, by eating from the Eitz Hadas, as if Hashem has deficiency, and he needs to eat from the Eitz Hadas to create the world.
Where do you think the Eitz Hadas came from?
So Adam and Chava never had a Havamina to eat from the Eitz Hadas until the Nachash comes along and he says like this: he's just Elokim. He's just, one of the strong forces of nature. He's not Haya Haya V'yeh. Says the Gemara in Sanhedrin Lamed Chesed and Beis, Adam Arishain Min Haya. He was an Apikaris. How do we know he was an Apikaris? Because if you look in the next pasuk, Perek Gimel Pasuk Beis, Chava also stops to drop the Hashem. She accepted the pitoy, the seduction of the Nachash. The seduction was, there's no Hashem. And once you accept that God is only Elokim, there are a lot of Elokims. Right? Dayanim are Elokim. Mala are called Elokim. So basically, the Nachash was the first person who brought down into this world this idea of drop the Yud Kei Vav Kei. By the way, and we learned Wednesday, that Parshas was the Nachash. Parshas was a Nachash. Chida writes, number 23, this is from, I forgot to put it on, the Midbar Kedemais, Mareches Pei Ois Beis, the numerical value of Parshas is Nachash. Plus 3, right? Parshas plus Parshas Melech Mitzrayim equals Nachash. The Shla writes elsewhere, Parshas in Tanakh is called the Nachash. In Yechezkel, Perek Chav Tes, Pasuk Gimel, he's called the Great Serpent. And if you unscramble the letters of Parshas, you get He'afar, the dust. So Parshas is basically doing exactly what the Nachash did. Hashem created the world, Hashem Elokim, and the Nachash ever so casually drops the Yud Kei Vav Kei. Oh, Afki Am Elokim. That's exactly what Parshas did. Parshas, he believes in Elokim. Yosef taught him about Elokim. He accepted Elokim. He said Etzva Elokim here. But his objection is to the Yud Kei Vav Kei, exactly like the Nachash. That's why Parshas, when he hears the words Hashem HaTzadik V'ani V'ami Hashem, he injects himself to be mafsik in the Yud Kei Vav Kei. And that's according to the meaning of the pasuk. You would think he would be humble. No. The fact that he understands that this is Elokim is not what he's out against. What he doesn't understand is what we say in Haidu. First, Haidu LaHashem Kitayv. Then Haidu LeElokeho Elokim. And then Haidu LaAdoneho Adonim. So this is how a new understanding in when the Torah uses Yud Kei Vav Kei, when it uses Elokim, and when it uses both. In the beginning of the world, God sets up the system of nature. When he deals with man, he teaches man, God could supersede nature. The Nachash is teaching Adam and Chava this Apikarsas. You could drop the Hashem. And that's why at the very end of the Parsha, another answer to the Marashdam's question. At the end of the Parsha, Moshe says, come on, Parshas, Haterem, Ki terem tira'un midnei Hashem Elokim. You fear Elokim. But what you don't fear is Hashem Elokim. Rabbi, say have a wonderful Shabbos.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.